Crafting can create some extremely interesting and powerful items in Diablo 2, and while the hit power items aren't quite as mainstream as the blood and caster recipes we covered, they can still result in some interesting and fun combinations for niche builds, and also contain some useful trick items that people often forget. Hit power sticks with its Sapphire theme and is most known for its standard Frost Novas when struck. It also has a pinch of retaliation damage against attackers, which can make for some interesting stacked modifiers, since a lot of equipment can get additional when struck effects, making this set essentially interesting for a pacifist runner especially. Up first, we have the Hit Power Helmet, made with a full helm and an Ith rune, or its of course, exceptional and elite versions. While it has the normal limitations of being just another rare helmet, and while it isn't anything to really write home about, it is guaranteed to have hit power's standard Frost Nova when struck, like we said, just like the rest of the recipes, and can be pretty fun for an early helmet for a player or mercenary thanks to its affordable cost, even if it doesn't have real long-term value for most builds. As we move down, we look at the hit power armor, and while still not super impressive, especially since it uses medium weight field plate rather than the lighter weight, say, cloth armors and stuff like that, it is weirdly probably the best of the crafted armors thanks to adding faster hit recovery on top of the standard hit power effects of the Nova and damage reflection. Since it just uses a Nef, it can be good for getting that early faster hit recovery on basically any melee character, although I wouldn't really worry too much about it on other characters, and there are still the options of, say, stealth armor, which provides plenty of bonuses in and of itself. Next up, let's talk about the belt, which is one of my personal guilty pleasure items. It goes on a heavy belt using a Tal rune, though I'd recommend using Battle Belt since they give you full slots without having the high strength requirement of the elite version, which is a Troll belt. Hit power belts are also fairly standard fare with the Nova and Damage Reflect. Pinch of damage goes to mana is their special unique thing for the belts, but the reason they're my guilty pleasure is for some reason RNG loves giving me dual Nova belts, which I find hilarious. Whether we get this when recording, the background examples for this is up in the air, but about half the ones I've done this with have given me that, so hey, maybe we'll get lucky. Otherwise, this belt is honestly pretty unremarkable. You're better off with a caster or blood belt in most situations. I just like my little gimmicky dual feature. Moving over, we have the boots. Well, chain boots and a Ral rune give you a little bit of extra defense, Frost Nova, and damage reflection on some rare boots, which isn't bad, but again, it's just in line with most normal rare boots. The only special guarantee is that it has the fun little Nova on it, which, like I said, is good for pacifist builds, but all hit power items have that, so you can probably pick something better to place it on, or pick something better for this slot, unless you really, really like basically poor man's Holy Freeze. Next up, we have the gloves, which oddly enough, in my opinion, are the best hit power item in the game, and oddly enough, overlooked in spite of having a Boazon's best friend on them. Knockback. With an Ort rune and chain gloves, you can make some easy knockback gloves, and if you're lucky, you can also get some really good rare mods on them with the help of, well, just luck. Basically, you can get a 20% increased attack speed on them with the knockback, and if you get some leech, oh my god, they're a lot of fun for the Boazon. Though you can get significantly better if you just give it enough rolls, and you can get some resistance stuff on there. So this is generally one of the few hit power items that I honestly recommend people making, especially if they ever want to make a Boazon or other similarly ranged character that it takes advantage of knockback. Back up in the kind of like weird weapon hand slot stuff, we actually have weapons and shields with this, as with all of them, often really underestimated crafting recipes. But anyway, the shield, again, obviously is a disappointment. Most of the shields are gonna be. Sure, it was has a fun Frost Nova effect on it, as all of them do, and the usual redemption, but it is also the only crafted shield in a medium weight shield. That's the only reason it's a real disappointment to me. If it was light, I'd actually consider making it just for like funsies, considering it only takes an Eth rune. It does boost block chance and have, like we said, the damage reflection, but as with most shields, I really wish they had something a little bit more distinctive on them to set them apart from, rune words and stuff like that, which really are distinctive. Thankfully, at least in my opinion, the hit power weapon makes up for the shield being kind of junky, and it's also fairly cheap to make using just a tier rune. I know that I said the caster one was the most flexible, because it kind of is, and well, this one kind of falls into the category of the most varied, because it allows for all blunt weapons. That means everything from clubs to flails to warhammers to even scepters, staves, and wands, so it does include pretty much everything the caster one does, and more stuff. The thing is, the modifiers on the hit power weapons really don't do much for the wands and staves. They don't do much for casters. The hit power weapon is going to be kind of in the same vein as the blood weapon, where it's just really good for melee attackers. It has enhanced damage like like I said, like Blood, and the standard Frost Nova and Retaliation damage effects as every other hit power item has. I know I'm going to be using a club for the demonstration on this just for jollies, but I honestly can only see myself using this for some interesting scepters, maybe some scourges for a melee paladin, or filling a weapon slot for a pacifist build with something cheap and light. That aside, we do have 2 more slots left, the rings and the amulet. For the ring, we use an Amrune, which is a little bit expensive, and it's just an okay base. With plus Dex natural modifier not being terrible, it's semi-useful, it is a sought-after stat, but you're really banking on getting exceptional rolls for your 4 rare slots to make this actually useful. Though it'd be pretty fun to get a dual leech or high resist hit power ring, I'd rather do it with the blood formula just because it's going to be more reliable. Of course, we are saving the amulet for last since it can be either a ton of fun or the most annoying thing ever. The hit power amulet has the ability to cause enemies to flee. Other than that, it's more of the same for hit power with the Frost Nova and Retaliation. It doesn't really have anything that makes it stand out and above and beyond the other basically crafted amulets that are around. Though I could see it being semi-useful for some Boazon builds if it rolls the right stats, letting you keep enemies at a distance much easier with the flee, and if you combine it with the gloves, some knockback. But in and of itself, it doesn't bring anything special to the table other than, well, being an amulet that can cause enemies to have the terror effect on them. And that's pretty much all that the hit power recipes have to offer. You probably know what's next on the crafting guides because we've covered 3 now. The next one is going to be the safety recipes, but guess what? That's not the end of the crafting guides because there's so much more interesting stuff out there.